Hello there. I'm going to be doing a monster train run today, but it's going to be a little different. You'll notice this is a custom challenge at Covenant level 23. So what I've done is I've asked both Reddit and the official Monster Train Discord for seeds that are or hard or people failed, and it's my opinion that there are definitely impossible seeds. I just know from in personal experience on a lot of my failed runs that those failures have been mistakes that I've made. So I feel like a lot of failed runs are not impossible to defeat, and I wanted to give this one a go. So I'm very appreciative for Curious for submitting this seed. I believe it's the only response I've gotten so far, but I welcome anybody watching to give me their own really challenging seeds. Even if I fail, it's a lot of fun to try to get those completed. So this one was, it's Umbra Exiled and Melting Exiled versus the Temperate. So right off the bat, I'm thinking, superfood is probably not something I want to do. Resin removal is one way to deal with it, but there's no guarantee of getting that. So getting Vapor Funnel here is definitely something I would like to see. Firewall does something similar, but Vapor Funnel is I just prefer it. It means you don't have to take any damage from backlines. And so, given the choice of Stalwart Snack and Superfood, I take Stalwart Snack for the reasons I discussed. And I guess I didn't really say the reason, but getting sap. So, if you have Superfood, you're going to transfer sap every turn. And without some way to outdo that debuffing, it's pretty brutal. So here, I definitely wanted an opportunity to get somebody to feed the champion too, because train stewards are pretty awful. So I take the trial, even though that means plinks are not going to do anything. And the upside is the fact that I'm not killing the units is not a big deal due to Vapor Funnel. So it's really just I'm going to take some like 4 damage around or 5 damage around if I don't kill them. But fortunately, the explosives tombs do help. I had 2 of them, so I knew I'd be able to mitigate some of the damage. And that's what I'm doing here. Yeah. I'm going to take no pyro damage. It's really just trying to make sure my train steward that I'm buffing has as much health as it can get for the boss. And I'm just realizing that I can't give it a morsel because the explosive's not dying from the units. And here, just keep rezzing the explosive tomb since I have nothing else that's dead. And knowing that my champ's going to go away soon, I put out another train steward down there. And this is mostly killing the front line of this boss. And I'm hoping to draw into another tomb, but I don't. So I'm actually pretty far off from killing the boss here. Vapor Funnel does mean that I think Vapor Funnel, I don't want to do the math, but Vapor Funnel might actually hurt me against the boss because of the reduced damage. But I still have 40 pyre health, so still plenty of room to spare. So here I see 3 choices. And I'm not really seeing a lot of value in the Prismal Dust or the Lifesteal without any sort of way to deal with the Ember Drain. And the fact that I don't have any way to generate morsels makes me pick up the Making of the Morsel. because of the potential tanks I'm going to get. I get resin removal, and that changes everything. So it suddenly makes the Temperant way easier to deal with, and it opens up the possibility of Ember Drain spells. I see an early Overgorger. I decide to take it. I have Stalwart Snack, which means I have 5 rounds of guaranteed morsels, which, unlike, the Plinks are not really great ways to deal with morsels. And I do have the Space Prisms, so that when I do get morsels, I can fit them in. I contemplate getting resin. I know I want to reduce the cost of resin removal and make it holdover if possible, but I figure it's more important to get upgrades for the Overgorger. Quick and Multi-Strike were what I'm looking for, and I find with Quick, I just decided to remove a Train Steward since they're really not part of my game plan anymore. And I don't have any money for anything else. Here, I know that it's not a big deal because of the Vapor Funnel, but I actually skip on the trial because I want to sit up on the top floor with my Overgorger, and he only has 15 health. And the reason I want to sit up on the top floor is so that I have the most number of turns to gorge. So I'm trying to scale for future fights as much as possible here, and I need the 2 more turns to do that. And really, it's going to help with the boss, too. Really not much I can do here, unfortunately. A tomb would have been nice, but I haven't drawn it yet. And I haven't drawn my Space Prisms either to feed the morsels to my Gorger. So my Gorger's looking kind of in trouble right now. Finally get the Space Prisms, and that allows me to set up a Train Steward to block all the damage, but it does mean I can't feed. And I do finally get a Prism, so it's going to do 50 damage to the boss, and now I can lifesteal, which is great. So I'm looking pretty solid against the boss here. Yeah, another 50 damage, so 100 total, I believe, from that one tomb that turn. And I can kill the boss, but there's no morsels that have 6 health, so there's no way to feed anymore, unfortunately. And there we go. 5 fire damage, not too bad. I got to feed a bunch of times. I was pretty happy with that. I overlook Perils of Production here. That's another way to deal with Ember Drain. And resin removal removes Ember Drain, and it generates Ember. It's a pretty solid card. I didn't even think of that at the time, so I picked up the target removal, which is also good. I'm not regretful of that. Here, I really debate on this Dripfall. I see opportunities to use it. I'm not sure it was the right call in retrospect. It did help me on some turns, but so would just not having the card in my deck. And I don't have enough money to do much here. I can get one big upgrade, and like Holdover and Quick are the 2 things I'm looking for. And I decide the Quick is more important since I don't really have any damage mitigation tools right now other than chump blocking. Don't find it. I decided to pick up the Rail Spike here. I have a lot of good targets for it. And it can help me draw into stuff. Like I have a lot of cards that are not important to play, so that if I draw them, I don't need to use the Ember to play those. And save my money for the more important upgrades. So on to Daedalus here, and this actually ends up being kind of tough. I don't remember if I don't think I took a ton of fire damage, but this start was really tough because of the setup. The top floor was small, so I couldn't put both my champion in the Overgorger because I didn't draw into my Space Prisms. and the middle floor I would immediately take 10 damage, and the plink I would have a 25% chance of killing the bomb because the boss is there, so I wasn't willing to take that chance. So I bite the bullet and sit up on the bottom, hoping I'll draw into answers, and I don't. Mainly, I need chump. My main way of mitigating damage right now is chump blocking, and I need the space prisms for that. So I'm already down to 6 health here, which is scary. Fortunately, these guys only attack for 2, so I wouldn't die if I hadn't drawn into a jump blocker, but it was definitely not looking great. So here I draw into the better jump blocker. And I finally get a lifesteal morsel, which is a lifesaver. Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with what I'm doing. I don't remember how this fight went exactly. And now, yeah, my Overgorger is dying, so obviously I need to do something about that. And I finally get the lifesteal. So if he lives through the attacks next round, then he will get back up to full health, basically, which isn't that impressive, but it's pretty good considering he's doing a pretty good amount of damage. So pulling up the explosive here, now he's gonna lifesteal pretty well. He's still taking some damage. So in hindsight, maybe I could have, I don't know what I should have done, but I decided to go with the Morsel Miner. It gives 5 more health, and it scales. And scaling is still pretty important, even though I'm doing pretty poorly in this fight. I'm just contemplating my options here. That does a ton. And now, with those 2 cards played in conjunction, the Dripfall and the Chump Blocker, that means the boss is down to 1 pyre hit, but I have 2 turns to draw into a tomb. So 1 tomb does it, and we're good. So I think I took like 4 pyre damage or something there, which was pretty good considering how scary it looked. And here we go. So I get a Furnace Tap, which is fantastic. I also briefly consider the Intent on Death. I do have the tombs, but it's not nearly as good as Furnace Tap. The only problem with Furnace Tap right now is I don't have resin removal consistently yet, so I can't necessarily play Furnace Tap right away since it's still important. I need chump blockers and lifesteal morsels to stay alive. What would make I noticed right now that this is where the death was, so I was getting a little nervous. I was trying not to let any knowledge of how the other run went affect my decisions, and so I just pretended I didn't see it. I wanted more consistency, but also I knew that going through the first cycle of my deck was probably the most important bit, because eventually I was going to get holdover on resin removal. So I removed 2 Train Stewards. I know there's a bunch of harvest units that make it harder to play to the Train Stewards. And now I see Superfood. I was hoping to see Superfood because of how good it is with Furnace Tap. Because multi-strike transfers to the front unit, so just so much better. And I'm still got kind of a weak defensive setup, so I decided not to take the trial here, knowing that I'm going to chump block, so multi-strike would get past that chump blocker. And for many reasons, I want to set up on the top, just more scaling, more time to get into the important cards like, space prisms, lifesteal morsels, etc. I with only one ember, I was considering playing the rail spike, but I wanted to save it for when I had more ember. Get a little unlucky there. I was hoping to hit that back unit with the plink and draw into both my furnace taps. And I think it's kind of early to play them because then I wouldn't be able to get any sort of chump blockers with all that ember drain transferring to the Overgorger. And again, I strike out with the plinks. Fortunately, the Pyre will take care of most of that. And there we go. This is my chump blocker that I was looking for. I do have Cannibalize, so I could do that and either use the morsels to feed or play down the other explosive. I decide if I had a lifesteal morsel, I would have fed, but I didn't get one. So I decided to play the other explosive. Nope, I forgot what I did. I decided to feed. And it is more damage and kind of made up for by the extra max health, which if I ever do get a lifesteal morsel, that max health means blocking there would have been irrelevant. There's no guarantee of getting that though, so it was a risk. And here that kills everything. And just hoping to mitigate some damage next turn there. And yeah, here is where I decide the rail spike might be worth it. Mainly because, I'm not sure what I was looking for, but I did find a couple plinks. I think it was probably super important that I hit those 2 back units in the boss wave because that's a lot of incoming damage. I don't need to stay alive that long with all of the potential damage if I get into a furnace tap next turn, for example. I don't play it this turn because I want to be able to draw into chump blockers still. So I see I'm going to draw into a furnace tap and primitive molds. The molds are going to help mitigate a lot of damage. Hopefully 2 rounds of damage at least. And then I could also draw into the furnace tap. So really playing this turn was something I wasn't wanting to do. Basically everything I could draw into except for the plink helps to mitigate damage. I decided to play the Train Steward there. I think that was actually a mistake because it muddies up the reform pool. So this blocks 2 hits. No, it only blocks 1 hit. This blocks the other hit. And there we go. I'm doing enough damage and drip fall for good measure. Not that it did anything. So 5 damage taken, and I make it further than the first run. So I'm feeling pretty good about that, and also feeling pretty good about my chances. The main weakness of the deck is it doesn't really have any defensive tools. I pick up Crushing Demise there to weaken the waves before it gets to the top. I am planning on sitting up on top no matter what here, and that's why I took Capacity. Find Holdover, super happy to see that. And now I have a resin removal and I can play the furnace taps way earlier in the fight. Decide to get rid of these plinks with Consume. They're actually good now. And I decide to make the Mind Collapse generate Ember potentially. And here I'm actually, I don't have enough money for Consume Remove, but I actually want to discount the furnace taps even though they're Consume cards, because if I happen to draw them both on the same turn, it would be a shame to not be able to play them both. The earlier I can play furnace tap on my champion, the more multi-strike transfers to the Overgorger. I skipped the trial there. I forget what it was, but I didn't realize in my head that resin removal gets rid of stealth. So this boss ended up not being like, I played a lot of things trying to remove stealth and such, and I didn't have to worry about that. So I'm worried about the bottom wave there. There's a lot of units to chew through, and that's a lot of damage to the pyre if he doesn't get touched. But I start eating through the front units there. And I get my resin removal and furnace tap, which is good. But I don't do much damage to that back unit, so I decided to drip fall it and try to crushing demise it. No luck on the crushing demise, but now he's going to die, at least. Unfortunate amount of damage being done to my Overgorger, so I decide, well, obviously get a chimp blocker there, and I'm going to play the rail spike in order to hopefully draw into something, and I do. I draw into a plink, which is one less hit. Not doing the math, I'm not sure if that actually reduced the damage, but it felt good. Yeah, so this is a disturbing HP number for the Overgorger, especially not knowing that stealth is going to be removed, because right now he's going to have 16 health, which is plenty, but once I start doing stuff like that, that back unit's going to die, which will buff the boss. So now the Overgorger is going to die before it gets attacked, as is. Now I have plenty of tools to deal with that, fortunately. Chimp blockers mainly. But I decided to put these chimp blockers up here because I'm worried about stealth, and then I resin remove the stealth and realize that, oh, so I can drip fall here, I can chump block here, really not a big deal. Unfortunately, one round will kill it, so I didn't have any way to feed morsels that turn. Looking at these, there's nothing really that builds into my deck. Ember Cache is okay in that if I'm Ember Drained, it can help, but Resin Removal deals with Ember Drain, and I don't really have an expensive deck otherwise yet. And KVN doesn't do anything at all. Oh, look, an expensive card that is really good. So I'm not sure if picking up that Ember Cache would have been good, but I do pick up an expensive card which solves my defensive issues in a really good way. And the reason that is because stealth transfers to the front unit. So it's going to build up much faster than normal, especially if I trim my deck even more, which I want to do. So Teeth of Gold, what that does, and it's not very good at it, but what it does is it kills the back units for you when you're feeding every turn. And I plan to be feeding every turn, but it does it after combat, so it's only good in protecting your pyre. And I'm already protecting my pyre with Vapor Funnel from back units, and it's not nearly enough damage to deal with the front units, so it's kind of a pointless artifact. And the fact that flying bosses take the damage makes it even worse, even without Vapor Funnel. And this ends up probably being one of my tougher fights. And the reason that is well, I want to set up on top for maximum scaling on every fight. And I just don't have a good way to deal with the Scourge Givers. I have the Mind Collapse, but everything, and the Plinks just are not enough. So I'm hoping to draw into my resin removal soon. But I have a pretty large deck, and these Scourge Givers are taking up my draw by replacing my draw with Scourges, and that includes the boss. So I'm prioritizing removing them and dazing them, but it's not enough. So yeah, so I draw into my first furnace tap here, and in retrospect, I think I probably should have not played it, but I wanted to play it, and so I did because I wanted to get as much multi-strike as I could. But it's ends up being pretty problematic because I don't draw into my resin removal because of my effective card draw side. Like this turn, I drew 3 cards, and this turn I don't know, drew 3 cards. So yeah, drawing 3 cards a turn when you have a 30 card deck means you're not going to get that guaranteed. And I can't play any of my cards, which eventually, like, I run out of stealth there. I believe my black champion died because he ran out of stealth before the Overgorger. Finally get the resin removal, but I'm starting to take some serious damage. At least I'm killing most of the units. I'm taking pyre damage because of the scourges. I can start chump blocking now that I have Ember again. And I'm happy to see that stealth, and that's that kind of saves me here. I'm just doing the math. I'm not sure if I have enough damage, so I decide to take this Weight of Contrition to the face just so that I can play my other furnace tap. I'm really worried that I'm not going to do enough damage to the boss with only 34 health. So I'm still dying even though I did that. So I think I needed to do that to live. But I finally make it through. I think I definitely blundered this fight, and that was mainly playing the furnace tap before I drew into my resin removal. I'm not sure I needed the damage from it that early, and I would have mitigated a lot of damage and been able to play more furnace taps maybe earlier, like to later. I don't know. I think I would have made up for it. Here, I'm trying to figure out if Endless will affect my champion, and I read the text and decide it's not gonna do it. Umberstone is super useful early, like before I get my furnace taps, but it's expensive, and I'd rather just keep my deck slim. And Formless Child doesn't really fit into my deck. I'd have to somehow kill my champion, and I don't really have a reliable way of doing that. I guess stealth. That happened on this fight, but it would be hard to time. I decided I definitely want to find quick on the Overgorger. Even with stealth, it's just a whole nother round of, and before I get stealth, since stealth is kind of expensive, I'm not always going to be able to play that early. I'm just trying to figure out if I'm going to go to the Merchant of Magic or a Merchant of Steel. I decided I'm going to go the Merchant of Magic. And I could pick up multi-strike here, but I'm getting so much multi-strike that it seems almost not necessary. My main concern is before I get all of my buffs going, because after I get them all, I'm already out of control damage-wise. And here I'm looking at Superfood 2 versus Stalwart Snack 2. And with the stealth, I'm not particularly worried about getting damage shields up. I kind of want to just get more stacks of multi-strikes. So Stalwart Snack ends up being the way I go. Just because Furnace Tap is going to go on to the champion. So it's just so many more stacks of multi-strike for the Overgorger. And yeah, removing cards now is super important, because getting to that resin removal, getting to those multi-strike furnace taps early is really important. And plinks don't really have a place right now. I end up actually picking up the +5, +10, because that 10 health, there's been so many times so far in this run where my health has gotten down to less than 10. So I think maybe that 10 health might just buy me that much little time to get set up. And the multi-strike is just going to be overshadowed by how much multi-strike I'm already getting from Furnace Tap. So if they cost the same, I would have taken the multi-strike, but I wanted the money for the last area. So for the same reason I take this, I'm hoping the stealth will keep me alive through this, and we'll see. That first wave is very scary. Seeing this Crushing Demise makes me happy, and I'm just doing the math here. I can play out all my cards, then Mind Collapse, and then play out more. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that. I figure I'm going to Mind Collapse the back unit in this middle row, and then Crushing Demise the back unit in this middle row, so that leaves me with Ember to do the other things in my hand. And I do make the decision here to Furnace Tap my champion because I don't have anything messing with my card draw for this fight like I did in Fell. So I'm hoping I can draw into Resin Removal early, and I do. It does mean this turn I can't play the Furnace Tap, so I'm not sure if that paid off, but things are going to be smoother from here. I'm dying, though, so that's not good. I have some outs. Mainly, I'm looking at... I have nothing to cannibalize, so Awoken Railspike is looking like my answer. And I find three answers here. I get the Stealth, the Explosive, and the Dripfall. All three of those would have solved my death problem. So I'm trying to figure... I guess I was guaranteed into one of those, because I only had 4 cards left. So I stealth, so I'm not taking any damage, and everything's dying on the top. Fortunately, it does mean I can't Furnace Tap. But now I can, since I played a unit. There we go. This also does mean that I can't... I Resin Removed before I Furnace Tapped, which was a mistake. It does mean I can't play out these morsels because of stealth. So I'm dying. My champ is dying now because Overgorger gets way more stealth than the champ does do the superfood. Trying to keep my champion alive. There's no way to do it, though. Not particularly worried. So much damage here. And then now I have stealth, so really solid setup. And Void Binding. Void Binding is great to see. Stealth and Void Binding actually work pretty well in concert with each other, since the damage shields will stick around, unlike Lifesteal. There's certain defensive things that don't work well together. But damage shields and stealth are a good combo. I decided to make Void Binding free, so that I could play it even if I didn't have any Ember because of the timing of my spells. Decide to look at the artifacts, and there's nothing particularly interesting. Mask of Penumbra I consider, because there's a chance I could draw a morsel before I get into the important stuff, but not enough to spend all that money on it. That, however, seemed pretty solid. What means my Awoken Rail Spike is I can cast it with 0 Ember, so that could mean, just getting set up is the most important part of my deck. So that means I draw 3 cards and they become free to cast. And that could be the key. Decide to make my Stealth double stack, which really seals it in, and decide to consume another Plink, since Plinks are pretty much useless. And I only have enough money to remove 1 card here, unfortunately. The Primitive Molds actually can help with my Ember, because if I reform Tomb, then I can, because of Flicker's Liquor, it reduces the cost of the other cards in my hand. So I decided the Plink, which pretty much does nothing right now, is probably the best card to remove. And there's nothing else I can do with my money at this point. So the only thing left is to figure out what to dupe. And there's a lot of good choices here. I could do more. I was actually even considering getting a second resin removal because of how important it is. I could have done more damage shields with Void Binding. But in the end, I believe I decided it was Stealth was the most important thing here. Because I'm not going to have that many damage shields even with Void Binding. But Stealth is a whole round, whereas a damage shield or 2 damage shields is 2/3 of a round. So 4 rounds versus 2/3 of a round, it's pretty clear what the better mitigation was versus Seraph. So sit up on top. Unfortunately, it's the small floor, but that is the reason I went Capacity. And not even worried about removing that morsel. It's the first cycle of the deck that's going to be the worst. No resin removal yet. So I decide to Stealth and play these out. And I draw into my resin removal, so I kind of regret not playing the Furnace Tap. Not a big deal, though, because I have Mind Collapse. So here I'm trying to decide between Furnace Tap or more Stealth, and decide that damage was more important than defense right now. Could always draw into Stealth later. Killing everything here. So deciding the damage down there is more important. Unfortunately, I hit a backliner. So yeah, from here on out, it's going to be pretty. I'm not stressed. I have so much damage. Just trying to figure out what is best to play in a winning position. So Furnace Tap even more. Yeah, I was trying to figure out if I could somehow play morsels up there, but with the Stealth, it's just not working out, except on turns that I have the Stealth cards. So I have another Furnace Tap to play here. yeah, doing the math, even with Dripfall and Mind Collapse, I do not have a way to play any more morsels. I believe that's what I was contemplating there. Kind of irrelevant what I did in that lane. Maybe I should have played that Mind Collapse below. Draw into a stealth. The only thing I can get here is an explosive, so there's no reason to stealth that. So Raph taking quite a bit of damage here. And seeing that stealth is really a good feeling. So it looks like 27 stacks of stealth on the Overgorger right now. I don't know why I put that guy there. I could have fed more morsels and stealthed them. Oh, and then now I wanted to play the stealth, so I'm just feeding the tomb anyway. So I decide to get rid of this tomb so that I can give morsels to my Overgorger after all. With stealth, of course. And here we go, 33 stacks of stealth, 64 stacks of rage, I believe. Was that 18 damage shields? I can't tell how much multi-strike, but it's a lot. And Seraph's at 500 health, so some fun overkill on this final fight, but there was definitely some struggles, and I will review those after it's over. Boom. Victory. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed the video, and again, please consider liking the video if you enjoy seeing this, and if you have a run that you feel like is overly difficult, might even be hard countered, I would love to give it a crack. And I will say again, I believe there's definitely seeds out there that are unbeatable, but I just want to give it a shot and see what might be done differently to have a chance at victory. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.